I am Councilwoman Carolyn King Arnold, and I represent the district that tends to be the high performer, if you will, for crime, violent crimes. But I also represent one of those districts that generates a number of calls during this season. And the calls normally come from senior citizens who are fearful of their lives. We've had reports of seniors who simply lay down on the floor in the living room because they don't know where the bullets or the firecrackers might go. We have individuals who call because they're afraid of the fact that their children can't go out in the yard to enjoy the 4th of July. You have pets who are startled out of their wits because of the fireworks and the gunshot. So the calls go on and on and on. And we know it's a challenge to our quality of life. And yes, they want all of the noise to stop. And they want the police to be right there as soon as the first pop comes. But we know we have a challenge. And as Chief Garcia and DPD lays out the plan or prepares us for the plan, for the strategy, we know that it's going to take all of us working together. Now, all of us here have challenges in our districts, but my district, as I've stated, tends to be at the top of the list. But we all share similar concerns. So I'm going to ask each one of the council members to just share with you a little bit of what it means to them today to have this conversation about fireworks and the strategy that will be rolled out here today by the chief. Thank you. You want to start?
Sure. You know, I think back to a year ago and how much we were trying to look ahead to this July 4th when we were still so concerned about would we be able to come together, could we gather with friends and family to celebrate our nation's independence. And so this year we can. We know that we can get together safely, but around this weekend, safety means something different, and that means being very careful with regard to fireworks and gunfire and that sort of thing. So you need to be vigilant as a citizen, and you need to be vigilant in how you have a good time this weekend and to do it safely. So that's really what we're asking of the citizens of Dallas. Gay Willis, District 13.
Hello, Jesse Moreno, District 2. My message is simple. I want everyone to have fun as we're turning the corner from COVID, but we have to do it in a safe manner. We got to understand that when we're doing celebratory gunfire, those bullets come down, and we have kids, senior citizens, and we just want to ask everyone to be safe. We are prioritizing parks across the city where we know there is gatherings with fireworks, and so those are some of the target areas that we're going to be concentrating on this 4th of July weekend.
Thanks everybody for being here. Chad West, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Dallas. I also represent District 1. My district shares my two borders with Councilwoman Arnold's district, and which is why I appreciate for my own constituents as well as everyone in the city that we are doing this initiative thanks to you and to Chief Garcia. It is really terrifying for young kids, for seniors, for everybody when you're hearing gunshots going off in the night. It's my #1 call. It used to be speed racing, and now it's random gunfire, and it's really hard to pinpoint where it is. So it makes it very difficult for DPD to track down the offenders who are continuing to do celebratory gunfire, and that's why we as a community, we as a city, have got to work together. We got to police it ourselves, make sure we report it. The more DPD has told me multiple times, you might just assume your neighbors reporting this, but every single person that hears it, if you report it to DPD, that will help them identify where the problem's happening. So I'm excited. I know this is a real big challenge, and it's one of our biggest crime nights of the year, and so I'm looking forward to hearing what the plan is, and I'm going to absolutely support that. And I want to thank Councilwoman Arnold once again for bringing this to us today. Thanks.
We also have a couple of members from the community who also would like to just share some of their concerns and some of their interest in the plan. I would like to first start off with Pastor Walker. If you step up, I know that you're in the District 4. I know he's also has a concern as well, and he'll be followed by Mr. Paul Backus. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It is a pleasure to be here, but I am concerned about what is taking place in our district, in District 4, realizing that we're in a high crime district. But what can we do to come together collectively? And I do believe that if we would bring together the clergy and all of our young people and begin to work also in our school district, that maybe we can solve the problem by being able just to communicate. And so with the chief plan that he plans to roll out, we want to make sure that we're going to do our part in supporting him as well, so we can come together and be, as Councilwoman said, one. Thank you.
I'd like to say good afternoon. I'm Paul Backus in the area of Oak Cliff, the community of Backus, Cleves area. This is just a great concern right now because just so happened a couple of days in a row, that's all we've been hearing is firecrackers and rocket bombing that's coming up before the 4th is even taking place. So this is an awareness to let people know they are dangerous. They could set fires on rooftops, businesses, grass fires, anything like that can take place. So like the councilman said before, let us be aware of what can take place and the after effects of these firecrackers and gunshots. The bullet's going to come down. So let's be very important about that. I think this is a great awareness. I thank Councilwoman Arnold for inviting me here to make notation of things that can take place. So I will put out in my neighborhood and in my surrounding area of the community to let the business people know that we have to be aware of these things and to try to make it as safe as possible. Thank you.
At this time, we're waiting for, I'm waiting for, the drum roll is for Chief Eddie Garcia and his staff. So if you would come forth with the crew and telling us exactly what you're going to do as it relates to fireworks and the task force as we continue to address the issue of concerns around public safety. Thank you, Chief Garcia.
Thank you, Council Member. Before I get started, what our overarching goals are for this weekend, I just want to remind everyone and kind of set a level of expectation. The number one priority of this police department is to reduce violent crime. That's number one. So on top of the revelry that happens and all the celebration that we want people to have a good time, our responsibility is still going to remain violent crime. And so we're going to do our best. So the expectations to be set that way. I'll tell you, this weekend coming up, and I'm a numbers guy and looking at the numbers historically, this is not arguably, this is the busiest weekend for this police department this summer and arguably throughout the entire year, with the 4th being second only to New Year's Day with regards to the amount of calls for service and as busy as this police department is. So I just wanted to start that off with a certain level of expectation that on top of what we're going to be doing, our men and women still have to combat violent crime and still need to regard our overall crime plan. As we get into the operations, each patrol division will have individual operations that are be targeting hotspots and historical problem areas that are historic for the 4th of July. Crime response teams and overtime officers will be working 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. on both Saturday the 3rd and Sunday the 4th. Each patrol division will have 2 fire marshals assisting with fireworks complaints as well. Neighborhood patrol officers are providing additional assistance at each division, and our Office of Public Information has begun messaging related to random gunfire, as we hear constantly. Now, I will say this is not a new issue. To the 4th of July, I've been hearing complaints about random gunfire in the city since the day that I set foot here. And also our Fusion Center with the City of Dallas has provided everyone with heat maps with historical firework and gunfire call locations, all in addition to the hotspot policing areas of violent crime. So that's what we're doing. That's what our overall plan is. Obviously, we can't be specific of what we're doing, but we're obviously giving this the attention that it deserves. So, en español, este fin de semana es el fin de semana uno de los más ocupados de este departamento de policía. El día del 4 solamente segundo al día de Año Nuevo en esta ciudad. So vamos a estar bien ocupados. La primera prioridad de este departamento de policía es el crimen violento y las áreas en esta ciudad donde eso está pasando. Diciendo eso, sabemos que vamos a hacer muchas cosas para este día, para este fin de semana. Queremos que todo el mundo salga en esta ciudad y que tengan un buen tiempo en todo lo que va a pasar aquí. pero en cada división vamos a tener operaciones que vamos a estar viendo en las áreas históricamente en esta ciudad donde tenemos problemas con los fósforos. Vamos a tener equipos y oficiales que están trabajando mucho, que van a trabajar por las 6 de la tarde a las 2 de la mañana, el sábado el 3 y el domingo el 4. Cada división vamos a estar trabajando junto con los bomberos también para ayudarnos con las quejas de lo que está pasando y los ruidos y las bombas que van a estar pasando aquí este fin de semana. También vamos a tener los Neighborhood Patrol Officers, los oficiales que están trabajando en los vecindarios, que van a estar ayudando cada división. Vamos a tener también oficiales que van a estar trabajando más para poder para poder bregar con las llamadas normalmente que están causando en esta ciudad. Y eso es lo que vamos a hacer para este fin de semana. Pero también quiero que nuestra comunidad tenga paciencia con nosotros, porque este fin de semana va a ser bien ocupado, no solo para nosotros, para los bomberos también. And with that, y con eso, estamos aquí para tus preguntas. For that, we're here for your questions. Yes. Okay, the question was, how is our 911 center going to be prepared to answer the calls coming in? There's no question about it. This weekend is going to be very busy with calls for service in the 911 call center. I will say, since we took some crisis precautions and some things going with the 911 center, that we have we've dramatically improved the response time to those calls. So we're hopeful that we're not going to be getting those issues. We feel like we've dealt with it from a crisis perspective, and we'll move forward. So we've done some things to do what we can to fix that issue. There's some long-term plans that we're doing, but I'm very pleased with the results that I have seen thus far since we implemented those emergency procedures. I'm never going to use the term overwhelmed. These men and women answer the call every day, every night. This is what's expected in law enforcement. We are not the only major city that's going to be dealing with these issues. So these officers know what's coming. These are the times where you look in the mirror. This is why we raised our right hands to do this and to serve our communities. And so the officers are fully aware. I'm proud. I'm going to be riding around in patrol tomorrow myself. I want to see how this weekend's all about. And so I'll be talking to the officers, raising that morale, making sure that they know that we're here for the right reasons. They're here to protect this community. So I wouldn't use overwhelmed. It's going to be challenging, but it'll be challenging for any law enforcement official in this entire country this weekend, particularly in larger cities. Well, a few things. I mean, what comes up, you can't, the laws of gravity don't stop when someone shoots a gun in the air. That bullet has to come down. Okay, and I would hate for someone who is just being irresponsible with a firearm to have to live with that in their conscience when that bullet comes down and injures somebody. So it's amazingly dangerous. It also will tie up our 911 lines where there's other emergencies that we need to do. We all need to be in this together. I mean, this topic of we're one Dallas, it's not just, it's our community with us working together as well. We got to police ourselves in these instances. We're not going to be able to solve that issue necessarily. So we're hoping for some responsible individuals out there. I'll tell you what, and my officers respond to those, and you're putting my officers' lives at risk. And just this last week, officers responded to a certain individual that was doing that. They were able to find the car, catch the individual, and take that weapon off the street of an irresponsible individual who shouldn't have it. So it puts my officers' lives at risk. It puts our community lives at risk for something that's not necessary. But what I will say is I want everyone to call 911. We need to call 911 with these gunfires, these gunshots, because not always are they random. There may be a victim on the other end of that bullet. And so I want to remind people of that as well. And so we will do our best to respond to that.
Otras ciudades han implementado un número de teléfono especial solamente para este fin de semana para que la gente llame y reporte las llamadas de fuegos artificiales ilegales dentro de la ciudad. Esto quiere decir que aquí en Dallas la gente tiene que seguir llamando al 911 a pesar del déficit de personal que tienen. ¿Cómo van ustedes a enfrentar esto?
Lo que pasa es, her question was, you know, there's other departments that have set lines up specifically to deal with the issues of this weekend. How will people not use those lines and call others and to basically overload the 911 system? Pues la respuesta en español, lo que te voy a decir es que uno no sabe si es un fuego artificial o si es una arma que usted está usando. Por eso que cuando esas cosas pasan, lo que como expliqué ahorita, es que nunca sabe si alguien está haciendo un fuego artificial o si alguien está usando una arma y si hay alguien, un víctima ahí por eso. Nosotros creemos que hemos hecho unas cosas estas cuantas 2 semanas para ayudar el centro de 911 y si Dios quiere no vamos a tener los problemas que hemos tenido antes. The answer to that was basically we don't know, people don't know if that's a firework or a gunshot. Oftentimes, and if it is a gunshot, there might be a victim on the other end. We've taken, as I mentioned earlier, we've taken emergency procedures to hope that we don't get into the same issue we were in a few weeks ago, and we're hopeful that will work.
Drivers, speed racers, are those of special concern to you? I know you had talked earlier this week about increased patrolling on the highways.
There's going to be increased patrolling. I don't want to give our tactics of what we're doing and the deployment, but we will have individuals out on our roadways to include our highways that are the responsibility of the Dallas Police Department. So on this weekend, it's a message there, but you may not know when we're out there, but I'd be careful. I would think twice before driving while intoxicated. I would think twice before your temper gets the best of you and in a road rage type of incident, because we're going to be out there. You won't know when, but we'll be doing that. And I'll tell you what, it's not just this week. We'll be doing that throughout the year.
So you mentioned one thing that people should be doing is calling 911. For particularly in areas of District 4, there's usually an extended wait for an officer to be able to come out. What other advice would you recommend to citizens to do if they feel that it's a life or death situation or just the action is just way too close? What should they be doing? Who should they be contacting if they would like to elevate a concern or a need?
Well, if it's an emergency life and death situation, you call 911. We'll prioritize and we triage the calls that we get so that we respond to the life and death type of calls first and foremost. You know what, I mean, from a common sense perspective, if the police haven't arrived, move yourself away, as far away from the danger as you possibly can until we get there. That would be my best advice. But again, I will say this. For lower priority calls that are not life and death, there may be extended periods of time because this department will be incredibly busy this weekend. Anything else?
Chief, how closely will you be working with fire?
Puede pasar por una multa o arrestando y ir a la cárcel y pasar el 4 de julio en la cárcel, es lo que puedo decir. No estamos jugando aquí. Tenemos mucha responsabilidad de esta ciudad, no queremos más víctimas que están aquí y tenemos que bregar con esto seriamente, especialmente este fin de semana. Okay? Okay, thank you.
So thank you all for coming here today to enable us to really get the message out. So many of our constituents, especially the seniors, are not necessarily on just social media. So it was very important that we have this relationship and partnership with the media today. So we're going to ask that you also support Chief Garcia as well as the Dallas Police Department as they roll out not only just today and this weekend, but as they roll out the plan to combat crime in this city. But it's also going to take all of those individuals who are listening. If you see something, say something. We must stop hiding. And the only way we're going to begin to change the conversation is that we have to be a major voice. So thank you once again for joining us, and thank you, and we're going to continue to pray for Dallas moving toward one safe city. Thank you, and if you have questions, feel free to ask any of the constituents who are here today, and I'm sure Chief Garcia will be here along with his Blues team. Thank you.